Jon Rahm had a pretty phenomenal year last year. He won over $7.5 million and averaged 69.3 shots per round. It was a year on par with one of the greats like Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer. And those three players also look pretty similar. Stocky, strong, slightly above average height, a perfect figure for golf. Actually, I lied. Jon Rahm is 4 inches taller than both Nicklaus and Palmer. What the heck? This got me thinking, is there any pattern here? Are professional golfers taller than they used to be? Or is this just a one-off example? In this video, I'm going to answer this question mathematically, and then I'm going to try to figure out why height can make someone a better golfer. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I figured it out. The first step in this investigation was to prove that the best players are in fact taller than the best players of times past. So how do you determine who the best player is? One measurement jumps out to me, the yearly money leader. This graph shows the highest earning PGA Tour player every year since 1934, along with their height. I think that it's a pretty good proxy for who the ideal golfer is at a given time. Clearly, there's a positive trend to this graph, but it's not perfect. There are some flat areas, and this is because, for example, Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus were the same height, and they were both big in the 60s, and Tiger Woods didn't let anyone else win any money at the turn of the century. So the general trend indicates that something is going on in the world of professional golf that gives an advantage to taller players. So, now that we've established the surge of tall pro golfers, I'm going to try and figure out why this is happening. Arguably the most important skill in golf is putting. On average, about half of the shots in a given round take place on the green, so that makes sense that the taller golfers are getting the edge of being better from being better putters. But that's not actually what the data shows. Interestingly enough, it turns out that players on the shorter side are better at rolling the rock. Take a look at this graph, which shows the strokes gained putting statistic and the rank of the player along with their height. So the better putters are further to the left, and the average putters, by tour standards, so they're still pretty good, are on the right. Clearly, the better putters are shorter, as you can see on the y-axis. And as you move to the right, the players actually do get taller. Now this didn't really make sense to me. This shows that taller players are worse putters than short players, but they're still doing better. And I never would have expected this. The bigger guys are clearly compensating for this disadvantage substantially in some other area of the game. But what area though? Well, I looked into driving distance next, which is something I thought taller players should be better at, right? Thankfully, this turned out pretty much exactly how you'd expect. The taller the player, the further they hit the ball. And this is nothing crazy. We all know the Dustin Johnsons, Brooks Koepkas, and Bryson DeChambeaus of the tour are unmatched when it comes to distance. And with all three of them above average in height, you can see why this conclusion makes so much sense. Their natural length gives them free leverage, which allows them to generate more clubhead speed, and they don't even need to train for it. My mean high school basketball coach always said to the short kids, "You can't coach height." And that applies to golf just as much. Now that we've proven a positive correlation between height and driving distance, let's see if we can connect those longer drives with lower scores. First of all, you need to understand that every stat in golf is currently being optimized. Since the 80s, drives have been going farther, putts per round has been going down, and scoring averages are reaching record lows. But, and check this out, there is one statistic that has a noticeably different trend through those years, and that is driving accuracy. As you can see here, driving accuracy, which is the percentage of time that you find the fairway from the tee, actually reached a maximum in the late 90s and is now nearing an all-time low. What the heck? I can only think of one explanation for this, and that is, around the year 2000, no doubt thanks to this guy named Tiger Woods, pros have started to realize that the rough is not actually that bad if you're hitting it far enough. These guys are so good, and the equipment is so advanced that the long grass just doesn't pose a problem for them. They would rather hit a pitching wedge out of the rough than a 9-iron out of the fairway.
Out to the play with Mickelson.
Left-hand rough into the 11th. Well, I was questioning his driver off the tee. Why not find the fairway with a fairway metal or a long iron? Knocks it in for a quick eagle.
So what exactly does this have to do with height? Well, hitting the ball further is clearly an advantage in golf, and no one's arguing that. But it turns out that hitting the fairway may not be as big of an advantage as we make it out to be. As we've shown before, being taller leads to longer drives, and being shorter leads to more precise drives. But if straight drives are becoming less valuable on tour, that means that being short physically actually disadvantages you because there's no way to make up for the lack of distance off the tee. But that still leaves one issue. The issue of shorter players being better at putting. So why aren't they better players? Well, here's my theory for why the tall guys are better overall, even though they generally lack, at least based on my studies, in that area of the game. They have more practice time. Now hear me out. Being tall gives players the freedom to practice any area of the game that needs work. Meanwhile, the shorter players need to dedicate some time to strength training to stay competitive. And this is time that they can't spend on areas they should be or could be improving. To further support this theory, look at the best shorter players. Rory McIlroy is 5'9", Louis Oosthuizen is also 5'9", and Xander Schauffele, who's 5'10". All of them are capable of launching the ball 330 if they really need to. They're all strong enough to not have to worry about lagging behind other players in the fairways. And that's why they're so competitive with the giants of the PGA Tour. In the end, whoever has the most skill will perform the best. Generally, that comes from practice. But when someone inherits a useful skill through their genes, they're given an innate advantage over those that need to grind for it. In golf, that advantage is height. Taller players maximize distance while sacrificing accuracy. However, pros have realized that accurate drives aren't actually that important, which in turn favors the taller, less accurate, longer hitting players. That is why the best players are getting taller. Thanks for watching.